obviously I'm disappointed, right? I mean, it's from somebody who comes from my background in the military. Military is focused on mission accomplishment and the welfare of those in the command, right? And so when I look at, and I realize I'm in some ways atypical, maybe kind of nerdy or quirky, I get that, right? But you did ask the question. So, I mean, to me, you don't spend more than you bring in. I was brought up that way, and I mentioned, hardscrabble, we didn't have much money, but we weren't in debt. We never spent more than we had. This was a very constant theme for me in the U.S. Congress. I ran on a platform to work to get us back to a balanced budget. Didn't get there all the way. I will tell you what, though. I was elected in November of 2010 when the deficit was about $1.4 trillion, and we got it down to $400 billion. That's still too high. We cut the deficit by 70%, and I was part of a team. We were working in a bipartisan way in Congress, and we worked with the Obama administration. Cut the deficit by 70%. Got the deficit down to $400 billion. Today, this annual deficit is going to be close to $4 trillion. We cannot do business this way. I mean, we will go bankrupt. And, the point of it is this is not only fiscally irresponsible, it's morally irresponsible. Because why? Because you're going to have to address this. And the people who are going to be left with the bills, right? The people who are going to be left with the bills, they can't even vote right now. So how immoral is that you're foisting upon them all this deficit and debt, and they can't even vote to vote you out? It's not right. So when you ask me what's the state of politics, I'm concerned about, I want us to be smart about the way we do things. Now look, you're in a pandemic, of course. You got to address that, of course. But we were running trillion-dollar deficits before the coronavirus. And you know what? You know what Washington wants to do right now? It's somebody else's fault. It's not somebody else's fault. If you're in elected leadership in either party right now, you're to blame. And you know who else is to blame? I'm to blame. We're to blame. Because we the people. This is no good. Now that's just on one policy issue. I'm also not pleased by the way that we go about deciding on our policy issues. And that here again is the disposition and temperament to work together. And the civility that's required to really listen and to find accommodation. We committed to a representative form of government. Arguably, we could have done other things, right? We said we're going to be a democracy, a representative democracy. That requires citizens. That requires citizens that are imbued with rights and responsibilities, and among these are to be active in our government. Yes, vote, of course. We expect our citizens to vote, but they also have to be up on issues. They have to really educate themselves on the issues. They have to be able to give feedback to representatives, hold them accountable. There is so much more than just voting, although voting is needed. So, so I would say that these are some of the things that we bring out in our instruction here at Siena College, because if our leaders, the next generation of leaders who are going to make a difference, they've got to be able to communicate in such a way that they gain support and hopefully get the country to move to a position where we do work together, we solve our major problems, and we set up next generations for success. I want to say one other thing on this. American dream. You hear it a lot. Very often, very seldom is it defined. I always try to give definitions. I think, it's intensely personal, but to me, the American dream has always been essentially two things. One is that you are really the master of your potential. That's what the founders meant by life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The pursuit of happiness was actually the Greek word eudaimonia that they translated as pursuit of happiness. You say that in the 21st century, and you get the feeling that that's like corporeal, fleshy, something really about immediate needs. That's not what the founders were intending. The pursuit of happiness was really about a eudaimonic life, which was a flourishing life, right? And so that's the first thing in the American dream, is that you rise to your God-given potential. And that's an amazing thing. The second dimension of the American dream was that we hope to set up the next generation, our kids, our children, to be in a stronger position than the one we inherited. And I wonder, do we still believe that? Do we still believe that? Given what we have done to the deficit, what we've done to the environment, you look at, when you look at when you look at where we are today with problems that we have, and you wonder, do we still mean this? Now, what I have noticed is both sides will say they do, but they blame the other side. At a certain point, you got to say, we're all Americans here. How are we doing? Answer is not too good, but we can do better, and we must do better.